Power does not announce itself.
The world is loud because most people are weak. They speak too much, react too fast, and reveal everything they think because silence scares them. From the moment you wake up, noise attacks your opinions, outrage, comparisons, expectations, and yet the Stoics warned long ago that the man who cannot govern his inner world will always be ruled by the outer one. Marcus Aurelius did not write his thoughts to impress everyone. He wrote them to discipline himself. That is where real power begins, not in being seen, but in being unshaken. Move in silence. This is not a slogan. It is a discipline. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the refusal to waste energy. When you speak less, you observe more. When you observe more, you understand patterns others miss. Most people expose their plans before they take their first step, seeking validation, approval, or reassurance. The Stoic does the opposite. He knows that approval is fleeting and opinions are unstable. He acts without announcing. He builds without applause. And because of that, he cannot be easily interrupted, sabotaged, or discouraged. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you do not need to explain your philosophy. You need to live it. Every time you resist the urge to react, to argue, to prove yourself, you strengthen something rare: self-command. The crowd mistakes silence for weakness because they measure strength by volume. But history tells a different story. The most dangerous forces are quiet. Fire does not shout before it burns. Gravity does not announce itself before it pulls. The disciplined mind operates the same way: calm on the surface, decisive underneath. Think deep. Superficial thinking creates superficial lives. Most people skim reality. They react to the surface of events without examining causes, without questioning their own judgments. Stoicism demands something harder: ruthless self-examination. Marcus Aurelius warned that it is not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. This single idea separates the thoughtful from the reactive. When something goes wrong, the undisciplined mind asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic asks, "What judgment am I making, and is it under my control?" Deep thinking requires stillness, and stillness is uncomfortable for those addicted to distraction. To sit with your thoughts is to confront your fears, your weaknesses, your excuses. This is why so few do it. But the Stoic understands that clarity is born from discomfort. You cannot master what you refuse to face. Every day, Marcus Aurelius reflected on death, not because he was morbid, but because awareness of impermanence sharpens priority. When you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on petty conflicts and shallow desires. Deep thinking also means long-term vision. The impulsive man chases immediate relief. The Stoic measures actions by their future consequences. He asks whether today's pleasure will become tomorrow's regret, whether today's discipline will become tomorrow's freedom. This is not pessimism. It is realism. Life does not reward good intentions, it rewards aligned actions. To think deeply is to align your values with your behavior, even when no one is watching. Win quietly. This is the result of silence and depth combined. Quiet victories are sustainable victories. Loud wins attract attention, envy, and resistance. Quiet wins compound. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet his writings reveal a man more concerned with governing himself than conquering others. He knew that external success without internal order is fragile. You can gain status and still be enslaved by anger. You can gain wealth and still be poor in character. The Stoic definition of winning is different. Winning means acting in accordance with reason. Winning means remaining just under pressure, calm under insult, disciplined under temptation. Quiet winning does not mean invisibility. It means independence from applause. You do not need the crowd to confirm your worth when your standards are internal. This is why Stoicism is threatening to a world built on validation. A man who does not need approval cannot be controlled by shame. A man who does not react cannot be manipulated. A man who measures success by character cannot be defeated by circumstance. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that other people. Actions are outside his control. Your task is not to fix them, but to perfect your response. This is where self-discipline becomes power. Discipline is choosing what matters over what feels good. It is training your mind the way an athlete trains his body through repetition, resistance, and restraint. Every time you pause before reacting, you are training. Every time you act according to principle rather than impulse, you are training. Over time, this creates a mind that is steady when others collapse. The Stoic path is not glamorous. There are no shortcuts, no dramatic displays, no constant rewards. That is why few walk it. But those who do develop something unbreakable. They do not rise and fall with trends. They do not depend on circumstances to feel whole. They carry their stability within them. And this inner stability changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you work, how you endure loss, how you handle success. It makes you reliable to yourself first, and then to others. In a world obsessed with being seen, choosing silence is an act of rebellion. In a world addicted to speed, choosing depth is an advantage. In a world that celebrates noise, winning quietly is dominance. This is not about withdrawing from life. It is about engaging with it on your terms, with clarity instead of chaos. Marcus Aurelius did not ask to be admired, he asked to be good, and that is the standard the Stoic holds himself to: uncompromising, internal, and relentless. This is where the journey begins, not with grand declarations, but with a decision to govern your mind before trying to influence the world, to build strength before displaying it, and to let your life speak louder than your words. Once you understand that silence is not weakness and depth is not hesitation, the next discipline reveals itself: control of judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind has the power to withdraw from disturbance, but only if you remember where disturbance actually comes from. It does not come from events. It comes from the story you tell yourself about them. Most people live trapped inside their own interpretations, mistaking assumptions for facts and emotions for truth. The Stoic learns to pause in the space between stimulus and response, because that space is where freedom lives. Every day you will be tested. Someone will disrespect you. Plans will collapse. Effort will go unnoticed. The undisciplined mind immediately labels these moments as insults, failures, injustices. But Marcus Aurelius trained himself to strip events of their emotional costume. He reminded himself that things are just things. Words are just sounds. Opinions are just passing impressions. When you remove the label, the sting disappears. This is not denial. It is precision. You are not pretending pain does exist. You are refusing to exaggerate it. Most suffering is self-inflicted. We replay conversations, imagine worst-case scenarios, and argue with people who aren't even present. The Stoic interrupts this mental noise. He asks one brutal question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, he releases it. If the answer is yes, he acts without complaint. This discipline alone separates the composed from the chaotic. While others waste energy resisting reality, the Stoic aligns with it and moves forward. Control of judgment also means refusing to be offended. Offense is a choice disguised as a reflex. Marcus Aurelius observed that when someone behaves badly, it is usually out of ignorance, not malice. Understanding this weakens anger. You stop taking things personally when you realize most people are fighting their own battles blindly. The Stoic does not excuse wrongdoing, but he does not poison himself with resentment. He corrects when necessary and endures when correction is useless. To think deeply is to recognize how often ego distorts perception. Ego demands recognition, fairness, and comfort. Stoicism demands honesty. It asks you to see yourself clearly without flattery or condemnation. Marcus Aurelius warned against both arrogance and self-pity, because both are distractions from duty. When you accept that you are neither special nor helpless, you become effective. You stop asking what you deserve and start asking what is required. This shift changes how you experience difficulty. Hardship becomes training instead of punishment. Delay becomes preparation instead of rejection. Criticism becomes information instead of attack. The Stoic mind extracts value from adversity. It treats every obstacle as raw material for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way. This is not poetic optimism. It is practical resilience. When you stop wishing life were easier, you start becoming stronger. Winning quietly depends on this inner recalibration. If your sense of victory depends on praise, you will be destabilized by silence. If your sense of worth depends on comfort, you will be weakened by discomfort. The Stoic redefines success as integrity under pressure. He does not measure progress by how others respond, but by whether his actions align with reason. This is why Stoic victories are invisible to the crowd, but unmistakable to the self. Self-control is not suppression. It is selection. You choose which thoughts deserve attention and which should be dismissed. Marcus Aurelius compared the mind to a fortress. It is only breached when you leave the gates unguarded. Every thought that enters shapes your mood, your decisions, your character. The Stoic stands watch. He does not allow every impulse to speak. He interrogates his reaction before obeying them. This level of discipline feels unnatural at first because most people are raised to externalize control. They wait for motivation, validation, or ideal conditions. The Stoic waits for none of these. He acts according to principle, not mood. He understands that motivation follows action, not the other way around. By doing what must be done regardless of feeling, he builds a reputation with himself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. There is a quiet confidence that emerges when you know you can endure discomfort without breaking. You stop needing reassurance. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing disapproval. This is why Stoic men appear calm in situations that make others frantic. They are not emotionally numb. They are emotionally trained. They have rehearsed adversity in their minds, so reality rarely surprises them. Marcus Aurelius practiced negative visualization, imagining loss, criticism, even death, not to invite misery, but to remove shock. When you accept that everything you have is temporary, you hold it with gratitude instead of fear. You stop clinging, and in doing so you become harder to disturb. Nothing terrifies a reactive world more than someone who cannot be rattled. As this discipline deepens, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. Your reactions slow down. Your words become fewer but more precise. Your presence carries weight without force. People may not understand why, but they feel it. This is the beginning of quiet authority, the kind that does not demand attention but commands respect. You are no longer ruled by every impression that passes through your mind. You are no longer dragged into every conflict that invites you. You choose your battles internally before they ever become external. And in that choice, you reclaim energy that most people waste on resistance, regret, and resentment. This is the second layer of Stoic strength, mastery of judgment. Without it, silence is empty and depth is aimless. With it, your inner world becomes ordered, and when the inner world is ordered, the outer world loses its power to destabilize you. When judgment is mastered, the next battle reveals itself, desire. Marcus Aurelius understood that men are not destroyed by hardship, but by the cravings they refuse to discipline. Desire promises relief, pleasure, escape. It whispers that comfort is harmless and indulgence is earned, but the Stoic knows that every unchecked desire becomes a chain. The more you obey impulse, the less authority you have over yourself. And a man who cannot command himself will always be commanded by circumstances. Most people confuse freedom with doing whatever they feel like doing. Stoicism defines freedom as independence from compulsion. If your mood controls your actions, you are not free. If your cravings dictate your schedule, you are not free. Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily that pleasure and pain are temporary sensations, not guides for action. To live well is not to chase pleasure, but to act in harmony with reason. This distinction changes everything. Self-discipline begins with awareness. You cannot control what you refuse to observe. The Stoic watches his impulses the way a general studies enemy movement. Hunger, lust, anger, envy, laziness, none of these are sins. They are signals. What matters is whether you obey them blindly or evaluate them intelligently. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the body makes demands, but the mind decides which demands deserve compliance. Modern life is designed to weaken this discipline. Convenience is everywhere. Distraction is constant. Instant gratification is marketed as a right. The Stoic resists not because pleasure is evil, but because dependence is. When you need comfort to function, discomfort becomes unbearable. When you need stimulation to feel alive, stillness feels empty. The Stoic trains himself to be content with less, so that he is never controlled by wanting more. This training is quiet and internal. No one applauds restraint. No one rewards moderation. Yet this is where real strength is forged. Marcus Aurelius praised the man who can deny himself what is unnecessary, not because of ascetic pride, but because such a man is resilient. He can endure scarcity without panic and abundance without corruption. He is stable in both extremes. To win quietly, you must reduce your dependence on external rewards. Praise, pleasure, recognition, comfort, these are unreliable currencies. They fluctuate based on other people, as moods and circumstances. The Stoic invests in what does not fluctuate, character. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you deposit into this internal account. Over time, the returns become obvious. You think clearer, you react slower, you recover faster. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should treat your desires as you would a disobedient child, firmly, calmly, without hatred. Suppression creates rebellion. Indulgence creates weakness. Discipline creates order. You do not destroy desire, you educate it. You teach it when to speak and when to remain silent. This is why Stoic discipline feels humane rather than harsh. It is not about punishment, it is about alignment. Consider how many lives are shaped by avoidance. People avoid discomfort, difficult conversations, effort, solitude. In doing so, they avoid growth. The Stoic reverses this pattern. He voluntarily embraces difficulty to reduce its power over him. Cold, hunger, fatigue, rejection, none of these frighten him because he is trained with them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the body can endure far more than the mind believes, and the mind can be trained to believe differently. This willingness to endure quietly separates the formidable from the fragile. While others collapse under pressure, the Stoic remains functional, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he has removed the illusion that comfort is necessary for dignity. He understands that dignity comes from conduct, not conditions. This understanding creates a quiet fearlessness. You stop negotiating with your impulses. You stop bargaining with your weaknesses. Desire also distorts ambition. Many chase success for validation rather than purpose. They want to be admired more than they want to be effective. Marcus Aurelius warned against this trap. He reminded himself that the applause of others is noise, not nourishment. When ambition is rooted in ego, it never rests. When it is rooted in duty, it becomes steady. The Stoic works not to be seen, but because the work is required. This reframing transforms effort into something sustainable. You no longer burn out chasing external approval. You no longer resent the absence of recognition. You act because it is consistent with who you choose to be. This is how quiet winners are made. They are not driven by hunger for attention, but by commitment to principle. As self-discipline strengthens, a subtle shift occurs. You begin to trust yourself. You know that when temptation appears, you can handle it. You know that when discomfort arises, you will not collapse. This self-trust is rare, and it is powerful. It makes you less anxious about the future because you are confident in your capacity to respond. Marcus Aurelius believed that a man's peace comes not from controlling outcomes, but from controlling his actions. The Stoic does not eliminate desire, he places it in service of reason. He desires to act justly, to think clearly, to endure honorably. These are desires that strengthen rather than weaken. Over time, the lower cravings lose their urgency, not because they disappear, but because they are outcompeted by something stronger, purpose. This is the third layer of Stoic mastery. Silence without discipline is empty. Depth without restraint is indulgent. But when desire is governed, your inner world becomes ordered, and order creates power. Quiet power. The kind that does not announce itself, but reshapes everything around it. Once desire is disciplined, attention becomes your most valuable resource. Marcus Aurelius understood that a scattered mind cannot be a strong mind. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Most people surrender this power without resistance. They allow their focus to be fragmented by noise, comparison, and constant stimulation. The Stoic treats attention as sacred. He guards it the way others guard wealth, because he knows it determines the quality of every action. To move in silence is to choose what deserves your awareness and what does not. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every problem deserves your worry. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you always have the option of having no opinion. This is not indifference, it is selectivity. When you give attention to everything, nothing receives depth. When you give attention deliberately, clarity emerges. Modern life rewards distraction. It celebrates busyness over effectiveness and urgency over importance. The Stoic resists this current. He slows his thinking not because he lacks speed, but because speed without direction leads nowhere. Deep thinking requires sustained attention, and sustained attention requires discipline. You cannot think deeply while constantly reacting. You must step back from the noise and create mental space. This is why solitude plays such an important role in Stoic development. Solitude is not isolation, it is calibration. Marcus Aurelius often withdrew mentally even while surrounded by others. He reminded himself that retreat is always available within. When you learn to be comfortable alone with your thoughts, you stop needing external stimulation to feel alive. This independence sharpens perception. You notice details others overlook. You see patterns beneath chaos. Attention also determines emotional control. What you focus on grows. If you dwell on insult, resentment grows. If you dwell on fear, anxiety grows. The Stoic redirects attention toward what is constructive. He does not pretend problems do not exist, but he refuses to obsess over them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should concentrate every minute like a Roman, performing each task with dignity, simplicity, and focus as if it were your last. This mindset transforms even ordinary actions into training. Work becomes practice in patience. Conflict becomes practice in restraint. Waiting becomes practice in endurance. The Stoic does not wait for ideal conditions to cultivate discipline. He uses whatever is in front of him. This is why Stoicism is practical rather than theoretical. It is lived in moments that seem insignificant but accumulate power over time. Winning quietly depends on this mastery of attention. Loud people seek attention to feel important. Quiet winners use attention to become effective. They do not chase every opportunity, they choose the right ones. They do not argue every point, they conserve energy for what matters. Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting your remaining time on useless thoughts. Time once lost cannot be recovered. Attention, once wasted, weakens character. The Stoic approach to work reflects this clarity. He works steadily rather than frantically. He measures progress by consistency rather than intensity. He understands that discipline outperforms bursts of motivation. By showing up every day with focused effort, he builds something durable. This quiet consistency often goes unnoticed at first, but its results eventually speak for themselves. Attention also shapes identity. You become what you repeatedly think about. If your mind is filled with envy, you become bitter. If it is filled with resentment, you become hostile. Marcus Aurelius advised himself to keep his thoughts clean, because the quality of thought determines the quality of life. The Stoic curates his inner dialogue with the same care others curate their public image. This does not mean eliminating negative thoughts entirely. It means not giving them the throne. Thoughts will arise uninvited. The Stoic does not panic when this happens. He observes, evaluates, and releases. He treats thoughts as impressions, not commands. This creates distance, and distance creates choice. As attention stabilizes, emotional reactions lose intensity. You are no longer pulled in multiple directions. You are no longer constantly depleted. There is a calm efficiency that replaces restless urgency. People may describe it as confidence or composure, but it is simply the result of an ordered mind. Marcus Aurelius believed that the soul becomes dyed by its thoughts. If that is true, then discipline of attention is discipline of character. Every moment of focus strengthens integrity. Every moment of distraction weakens it. The Stoic chooses deliberately, knowing that small decisions repeated daily shape destiny. This is the fourth layer of quiet strength. Control of desire gives you freedom. Control of attention gives you direction. Together they create momentum without noise. You move forward while others remain busy. You build while others react. And you do it without needing recognition, because the reward is internal clarity, steadiness, and self-respect. As this discipline deepens, silence becomes natural rather than forced. You speak when necessary, act when required, and ignore what does not deserve you. The world may continue to rush, shout, and compete, but you move at your own pace, deliberate, focused, and increasingly untouchable. When attention is disciplined, adversity loses its power to destabilize you. Difficulty no longer feels like an interruption, it becomes part of the training. Marcus Aurelius understood that life does not remove obstacles for the sake of your comfort. It presents them for the sake of your character. The Stoic does not ask why hardship exists. He asks how it can be used. This shift is subtle, but it transforms endurance into strength. Most people meet adversity with resistance. They complain, resent, and negotiate with reality. This drains energy and multiplies suffering. The Stoic meets adversity with acceptance, not because he enjoys pain, but because acceptance removes friction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you must accept whatever comes woven into the pattern of your destiny. Fighting what cannot be changed only exhausts the mind. Aligning with it restores control. Acceptance is not passivity, it is clarity. Once you accept reality as it is, you are free to act effectively within it. The Stoic distinguishes between what must be endured and what can be improved. He endures without bitterness and improves without arrogance. This balance is rare. Most either tolerate too much or fight what they cannot win. Stoicism teaches precision. To win quietly, you must become intimate with discomfort. Comfort weakens resilience because it creates dependence. When life removes comfort, the dependent panic. The Stoic prepares for this in advance. Marcus Aurelius practiced voluntary discomfort to remind himself that happiness does not depend on luxury. By reducing reliance on externals, he increased inner stability. Adversity reveals priorities. When pressure rises, trivial concerns fall away. The Stoic uses this clarity. He does not romanticize struggle, but he respects its ability to strip life down to essentials. In hardship, you discover what you actually need and what you merely wanted. This knowledge makes you harder to manipulate and easier to satisfy. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. This Stoic idea is often misunderstood. Pain is the raw sensation of difficulty. Suffering is the mental story you add to it. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to separate the two. He allowed pain to exist without turning it into injustice, punishment, or catastrophe. By refusing to dramatize discomfort, he preserved energy for action. Adversity also tests values. It is easy to be virtuous when circumstances are favorable. It is harder when integrity costs you something. The Stoic measures himself not by comfort, but by conduct under pressure. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the true worth of a man is revealed when doing the right thing is inconvenient. This is where quiet victories are earned. When faced with loss, the Stoic grieves without self-destruction. He understands impermanence. Everything he loves is borrowed, not owned. This perspective does not eliminate sadness, but it prevents despair. You feel the loss fully, but you do not collapse under it. You return to duty because life continues, and so must you. Resilience grows through repetition. Each challenge endured calmly strengthens the next response. This is why Stoic strength compounds. Others break down repeatedly because they never learn from hardship. The Stoic extracts lessons. He reflects, adjusts, and moves forward. Marcus Aurelius used his journal as a tool for this reflection, reminding himself daily of his principles so that adversity would not catch him unprepared. There is a quiet dignity in enduring without complaint, not because silence makes suffering noble, but because complaining adds nothing. It does not solve the problem. It does not reduce the pain. It only spreads it. The Stoic chooses silence not out of pride, but out of efficiency. He conserves energy for what he can control. As adversity becomes familiar, fear diminishes. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios because you have already faced difficulty and survived. Confidence grows not from positive thinking but from evidence. You have endured before. You can endure again. Marcus Aurelius believed that confidence grounded in experience is stronger than optimism grounded in hope. This strength changes how you are perceived. Others may not understand your calm, but they sense it. You become someone people rely on in crisis, not because you dominate, but because you remain functional when others unravel. This is quiet leadership, the kind that emerges naturally without titles or announcements. Adversity no longer defines you by what it takes, but by what it reveals. It reveals patience, restraint, courage, and perspective. These qualities cannot be displayed on demand. They must be forged. The Stoic accepts the forge willingly. This is the fifth layer of mastery. Silence keeps you unseen. Depth keeps you clear. Discipline keeps you steady. Attention keeps you focused. Adversity refines all of them, and when refinement is complete, you no longer fear hardship. You recognize it as a familiar companion on the path to strength. As adversity sharpens you, responsibility becomes unavoidable. Strength that is not directed turns inward and corrodes. Marcus Aurelius understood that Stoic discipline is not self-improvement for vanity but preparation for duty. You are not cultivating calm, restraint, and clarity to escape the world. You are cultivating them to meet the world without being deformed by it. Power without responsibility is reckless. Discipline without purpose is hollow. Most people avoid responsibility because it exposes them. When you take responsibility, excuses disappear. You can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. The Stoic accepts this exposure willingly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that each morning he was born for cooperation, not complaint. This does not mean pleasing everyone. It means contributing where you are capable and accepting the weight that comes with capability. Responsibility begins internally. Before you try to lead others, you must govern yourself. Your words, your habits, your reactions, these are your jurisdiction. The Stoic does not demand discipline from the world while remaining undisciplined within. He holds himself to the standard he wishes existed everywhere. This internal consistency creates authority without force. To move in silence while carrying responsibility requires restraint. You do not advertise your burden. You do not dramatize your effort. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire, yet his private writings reveal constant reminders to remain humble, patient, and fair. He knew that authority magnifies flaws. Anger becomes cruelty. Impatience becomes injustice. Ego becomes tyranny. The Stoic guards against these not by denying power, but by disciplining the self that wields it. Responsibility also clarifies priorities. When you know what depends on you, distractions lose appeal. Trivial pleasures become less tempting when duty calls. The Stoic does not reject enjoyment, but he does not allow it to interfere with obligation. Marcus Aurelius warned against allowing comfort to dull vigilance. Ease makes the mind careless. Responsibility keeps it sharp. Many confuse responsibility with control. They try to manage outcomes, other people's emotions, or the future itself. The Stoic rejects this illusion. He takes responsibility for effort, not results, for intention, not outcome, for conduct, not applause. This distinction prevents burnout. You give your best where it matters and release what does not belong to you. Quiet winning depends on this clarity. Loud ambition seeks recognition. Stoic responsibility seeks alignment. You act because it is right, not because it will be noticed. This frees you from disappointment. When praise comes, you accept it without dependence. When it does not, you continue unchanged. Your motivation is internal and therefore stable. Responsibility also demands fairness. Power tempts partiality. Stress tempts cruelty. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to treat others justly, even when they were difficult, ignorant, or hostile. He knew that losing fairness under pressure was the real failure. Anyone can be kind when life is easy. Stoic character is revealed when kindness is costly. There is a loneliness that comes with responsibility. Fewer people understand your constraints, fewer share your perspective. The Stoic accepts this without bitterness. He does not seek to be understood, he seeks to be correct. He understands that leadership, even informal leadership, often requires standing alone. Silence becomes a refuge, not a burden. This loneliness is not emptiness. It is space. Space to think clearly, space to act deliberately, space to resist being pulled into every emotion around you. Marcus Aurelius found refuge in reminding himself of the larger order of things. He placed his personal struggles within the vastness of time and nature. This perspective shrank problems to their proper size and restored composure. Responsibility also deepens self-awareness. You see your limits more clearly. You recognize when rest is required and when discipline must override fatigue. The Stoic does not indulge weakness, but he does not ignore reality. He adjusts intelligently. This balance prevents collapse. You endure longer by knowing when to push and when to recover. As responsibility becomes familiar, fear diminishes further. You stop fearing judgment because you are accountable to your own standards. You stop fearing failure because you measure success by effort. You stop fearing pressure because pressure has become your environment. Marcus Aurelius believed that the mind adapts to what it repeatedly faces. By choosing responsibility, you train yourself to carry weight calmly. This calm becomes visible. People trust those who are steady under obligation. They sense reliability. They feel safe around it. This is not charisma, it is credibility. The Stoic does not seek influence, but influence follows competence and consistency. Quiet authority grows naturally where responsibility is handled well. There is no glory in this path, no dramatic recognition. Often, the more responsible you become, the less visible your work is. But this invisibility protects you. You are free from the volatility of public opinion. You are anchored to something deeper, duty fulfilled with integrity. Marcus Aurelius did not romanticize this burden. He acknowledged fatigue, frustration, and doubt. But he returned repeatedly to the same conclusion. This is what you were made for. To act according to reason, to contribute to the whole, to endure without bitterness. Responsibility is not an imposition, it is an expression of purpose. This is the sixth layer of Stoic strength. Adversity toughens you, responsibility directs you. Together they transform discipline into service and silence into reliability. You are no longer merely resilient, you are useful. And usefulness, quietly exercised, is one of the highest forms of victory. As responsibility settles into your character, something subtle changes. You stop reacting and start choosing. This is where true self-mastery emerges. Marcus Aurelius believed that the highest power a human possesses is not control over others, but sovereignty over the inner world. Most people are ruled by impulses. They do not question anger, desire, fear, pride. The Stoic notices these forces arise and refuses to be dragged by them. Self-mastery is not repression. It is awareness paired with discipline. You feel anger, but you do not obey it. You feel desire, but you examine it. You feel fear, but you measure it against reason. This pause between impulse and action is where freedom lives. Marcus Aurelius trained himself daily to create that pause. In it he found peace even amid chaos. Moving in silence depends on this mastery. When emotions dominate, they demand expression. They want to be seen, validated, discharged. The Stoic does not vent by default. He reflects. He processes internally before acting externally. This restraint gives him an advantage. He responds with clarity, while others react with noise. Self-mastery also dismantles ego. Ego is loud, defensive, and fragile. It craves validation and resists correction. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of his smallness within the vast order of nature. Not to diminish himself, but to free himself from arrogance. When ego loosens its grip, learning accelerates. Criticism becomes information, not insult. Winning quietly requires this humility. Loud victories often mask insecurity. Quiet victories come from confidence that does not need witnesses. The Stoic measures progress internally. Am I more patient than yesterday? More disciplined? More just? These metrics are invisible to the crowd, but transformative to the self. Self-mastery extends to language. Words shape reality. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to speak plainly, truthfully, and without excess. The Stoic avoids exaggeration, gossip, and complaint. He knows that careless speech reveals a careless mind. Silence, when chosen deliberately, preserves strength. It prevents regret. It allows thoughts to mature before release. The mastered mind also governs time. You stop wasting it on what does not matter. Endless debates, shallow entertainment, pointless arguments, these lose their grip. Not because you are joyless, but because you are selective. Marcus Aurelius saw time as a finite resource loaned by nature. Squandering it was a form of disrespect to life itself. With mastery comes consistency. Your behavior no longer shifts wildly with mood. People know what to expect from you. This reliability builds trust. Internally, it builds peace. There is relief in not being at war with yourself, in knowing that your principles, not your impulses, guide your action. This does not make life easier. In some ways, it makes it harder. You cannot hide behind excuses or emotional outbursts. You must confront yourself honestly. But this honesty is cleansing. The Stoic prefers a hard truth to a comforting lie. Each confrontation with reality strengthens the mind as spine. Marcus Aurelius understood that self-mastery is never finished. It is a daily practice. Each morning, the mind must be aligned again. Each evening, it must be reviewed. Where did I fall short? Where did I act according to reason? This quiet self-audit keeps arrogance at bay and progress steady. There is a deep confidence that grows from this practice, not bravado, not swagger, but calm assurance. You trust yourself because you have evidence. You have seen yourself choose restraint when provoked, discipline when tempted, integrity when compromised. These moments accumulate into unshakable self-respect. Others may not notice your internal victories. That is fine. Marcus Aurelius wrote for himself, not an audience. The Stoic understands that the most important witness to your life is you. When you can respect your own conduct, external judgment loses its power. This mastery also prepares you for loss. When identity is tied to external status possessions, praise loss is devastating. When identity is rooted in character, loss is manageable. You grieve, but you do not collapse. You adapt without surrendering dignity. This resilience is not dramatic, it is quiet and enduring. As self-mastery deepens, the mind becomes a stable place to live. Less turbulence, fewer regrets, more intentional action. You are not numb, you are clear. Emotions still arise, but they no longer hijack direction. Reason sits at the helm. This is the seventh Stoic principle embodied. Rule yourself, and nothing else can truly rule you. Silence becomes strength. Depth becomes advantage. Quiet consistency becomes your signature. You are no longer trying to win loudly. You are building a life that does not need to announce its success. In the final movement of this philosophy, everything comes together into a single way of being. By now, the Stoic no longer asks how to appear strong, intelligent, or successful. Those questions belong to an earlier stage of life. The only question that remains is how to live in alignment with nature, reason, and conscience. Marcus Aurelius believed that when this alignment is achieved, life simplifies, not because problems disappear, but because confusion does. Winning quietly is not about secrecy for its own sake. It is about inner completeness. When you are whole inside, you stop seeking confirmation outside. You act because it is right, not because it will be noticed. This is the highest form of freedom. You are no longer negotiating your values with the crowd. You are no longer adjusting your behavior to harvest approval. At this stage, silence becomes natural, not forced, not performative. You simply feel less need to explain yourself. Your actions speak with consistency. Your character answers questions before they are asked. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the best revenge is not to be like those who wrong you. Quiet excellence outlives loud resentment every time. Thinking deep now feels effortless. The mind has been trained through discipline, reflection, and restraint. You no longer chase every thought. You observe them. You test them. You keep what aligns with reason and release what does not. This creates mental spaciousness. In that space, insight emerges. Not flashy insight, but practical wisdom that guides daily decisions. This depth also changes how you face hardship. Difficulty is no longer personal. It is part of the contract of being alive. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way. Obstacles are not interruptions to the Stoic path, they are the path. Each challenge is an opportunity to practice patience, courage, or self-control. Nothing is wasted. You begin to see how rare this mindset is. Most people are reactive, noisy, scattered. They confuse movement with progress and emotion with truth. You do not despise them for it. Stoicism does not breed arrogance. It breeds understanding. You see yourself in them, earlier versions of your own mind. This compassion keeps you grounded. Quiet victory also reshapes ambition. You still strive, but without desperation. You work steadily without obsession over outcomes. You accept that effort is yours to control, results are not. This detachment does not weaken motivation, it purifies it. You give your best because that is who you are, not because you are afraid of failing. There is a calm authority that grows from this stance. People feel it even if they cannot name it. You are not rushed. You are not defensive. You listen more than you speak. When you do speak, your words carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are measured and sincere. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while reminding himself that he was just a man subject to decay, error, and death. This awareness kept him humble and focused. The Stoic never forgets impermanence, not to become gloomy, but to become precise. When time is finite, trivialities lose their grip. What matters sharpens. At the end of the day, the Stoic returns to himself. He reviews his conduct without cruelty and without excuses. He corrects where needed. He rests knowing he acted according to his best understanding. This daily closure prevents the accumulation of regret. Life feels lighter when nothing is left unresolved inside. This is the final principle made real. Live so that your mind is at peace with itself. No performance, no constant proving. Just quiet alignment between thought and action. When you move in silence, think deep and win quietly, you are not trying to dominate the world. You are mastering your place within it. And that mastery is rare. It does not shout. It does not beg for recognition. It endures. Long after noise fades, after trends pass, after opinions shift, the Stoic remains steady, rooted in discipline, guided by reason, content with little, capable of much. This is not a philosophy for spectators. It is for those willing to practice daily, fail honestly, and rise without spectacle. If you walk this path, the world may never fully understand you. That is fine. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that approval is optional, but integrity is not. So live quietly, think deeply, act justly. Let your life not your voice, be the argument.